Today is called Good Shepherd Sunday, and for good reason. The theme of our Lord as a shepherd runs through all of our readings today. We sang "The King of Love, my shepherd is" at the beginning. We heard Psalm 23 sung in the responsorial, "The Lord is my shepherd." Indeed, the image of Jesus as the Good Shepherd is one of the oldest images in the Christian church. The oldest artistic depictions of Jesus, there on the walls of the catacombs, those depictions are of Jesus, the Good Shepherd, carrying the one lost sheep back to the 99. However, today I want to focus in on just a few lines from today's gospel. The sheep hear the shepherd's voice as the shepherd calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has driven out his own, he walks ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they recognize his voice. So first, the shepherd calls his sheep by name. There is a familiarity here, an intimacy here. The Good Shepherd calls his sheep by name because he knows them, and they know him. There's an intimacy here, a familiarity here, a love here. It is so significant that the shepherd calls his sheep by name because in biblical terms, the sharing of one's name is like a sharing of oneself. A name reveals identity. I am Kyle Bell. I'm the Kyle that belongs to the family of Bell. I am Kyle, son of Tim and Linda. Kyle, grandson of Harold and Dottie, George and Marjorie. A name reveals one's purpose. I am Father Kyle Bell. I'm a priest. I'm called to be a shepherd of souls. For someone to know my name in biblical terms is not just to know who I am, that fact. It is to be accepted into a certain circle of trust. When we're told that the Good Shepherd calls his sheep by name, it means that there is a relationship there, a relationship of trust, of love, of friendship between the sheep and the shepherd. That relationship of trust, that friendship is then manifested when the shepherd walks ahead of his sheep. He leads them, not because he thinks he's better than them or holier than them, but because he loves them. This speaks in a particular way to my priestly heart, my heart that so loves and misses you during this time of quarantine. My friends, Monsignor Joe and I have been so edified by so many of you who have reached out to us to thank us for how we've tried to shepherd you during this weird time. However, we have been even more edified to hear, like I said earlier, of the ways you are shepherding each other. Simply put, your priests are blown away by you. We've heard of families setting up their living rooms like little chapels to watch Mass on TV. We've heard of parents leading their children in prayers or doing activities with their kids that they found on forum.org. We've heard of parishioners reaching out to each other to check in. We've had so much generosity from people giving to the church so that money can be given to people who are in need, that Father Joe has spent a good portion of the past couple of weeks contacting people that he thinks might need that help because of you. And so as your priest shepherds, we want to thank you for being good shepherds to each other. Thank you for imitating Christ the Good Shepherd in this time when you are so estranged from church. Our doors, for now, may be closed, but you have swung open the doors of your domestic churches and have shepherded your families so beautifully. You continue to give us hope And your love for us and for each other makes saying Mass to a camera a little easier. So to all the parents and grandparents and friends and teachers, to all of you shepherds, I say thank you. And so yes, the shepherd calls his sheep by name, the relationship of trust and friendship. He leads his sheep because he loves and cares for them. And finally, the sheep follow him because they recognize his voice. What does the voice of the Good Shepherd sound like? Where do we hear him? Or when? How do we hear him? I'm reminded of something our youth minister Bart says to our Life Team kids often. He says, if you come to Mass and you claim that you've never heard God speaking to you, you're wrong. Every Mass, we hear the Scriptures read. That is the shepherd's voice. Every Mass we hear a homily. Even if it stinks, that's the shepherd's voice. Whether you realize it or not, you actually do know this voice. And more than any time during the Eucharistic prayer, when the priest stands in persona Christi and says those words of institution, this is my body, this is my blood, in that moment, that is the shepherd's voice. We know this voice instinctually, like a baby that knows its mother's voice before leaving the womb. The ability to hear him was implanted in us at baptism. So the question is not whether or not I'll hear him, and it's not whether or not I'll recognize him. The question is, will I or will I not follow him? My friends, today we call Jesus our shepherd. He is our shepherd because he knows us and calls us by name. He is our shepherd because he is our friend. And he is our shepherd, the shepherd that we follow, because we know his voice. The King of love my shepherd is, whose goodness fails me never. I nothing lack if I am his, and he is mine forever.